John Wick is the most dangerous person on the planet. Not because he kills thousands of people, but because he is able to destroy the institutions that ruled his society for centuries. And they had it coming. One tiny mistake, uncorrected, almost resulted in the end of civilization.
You stabbed the devil in the back and forced him back into the life that he had just left. What do you think he'll do?
John is the apex predator. Nobody ever came close to him, even after he retired. He doesn't simply die by someone else's hand, he allows himself to die. After John had his revenge, the one person who had a marker on him returned. Not to give it up and give John the peace he deserved, but to use the marker in the most arrogant way possible. Santino forced John to kill the high table member of the Camorra cartel, Santino's own sister, Gianna. Santino would replace her, while John would be hunted. By high table rules, every marker must be honored, and you can't kill the bearer of your marker. But if you had the marker of the devil, would you use it? The mistake was not Santino using his marker, but the high table knowing about it and letting it happen regardless. John lives a quiet life, but all of a sudden flies to Italy, Gianna dies while he's there, and right after, Santino's marker on him is completed, and Santino becomes part of the high table. Everybody can connect the dots. Instead of going after Santino for killing a member of the high table by proxy, the high table does nothing, even after Santino puts a reward on John's head. The cowardness of Santino and the ignorance of the high table is despicable. The high table built their rules around honor and loyalty. John honored the marker, even in such a dire situation. They should have waived his bounty and then confronted Santino themselves. But they didn't. They decided to wake the devil. And the devil does not bargain. He kills. And there is nobody in the world that can stop him. Not even the high table. The high table is a council of crime lords who govern the most powerful criminal organizations. The high table does not control the government like a secret shadow society. It is actually a symbiotic relationship. The high table has been granted a monopoly over organized crime as long as its violence does not impact civilians and cartels don't go to war with each other or the government. This relationship has been built and maintained over thousands of years. It is a cornerstone of the global economy. The high table does not hide behind shell corporations or corrupt politicians. It has public radio stations, RSS and SMS feeds, and the Continental Hotel network around the world, with thousands of employees. Successful assassinations are paid out in US dollars directly to your bank account, traceable by every security agency on the planet. But what does the government actually gain from this? How can organized crime be conducted without interfering with any public institution? And why would John Wick's destruction of the high table give rise to authoritarian regimes and inter-country military conflicts? To find our answers, we need to understand the high table and the way organized crime is integrated into the economy. Don't think of the high table as cartels, but an institution that regulates companies who sell illegal products and services. The high table members are not low-life thugs looking for trouble. They understand that there is always a market for illegal goods, and that there is a delicate balance between supply and demand. But more importantly, chaos and stability. The chaos of the criminal world and the stability of civilian life. The high table makes sure that cartels don't blur the boundaries to the civilian world. Fighting between gangs and cartels is allowed as long as it stays in-house and does not result in civilian casualties. Because if it would, the government would step in by force, resulting in military conflicts with the cartels. New actors are only allowed to flourish under the rules of the High Table. They have to join a family or gang. If they act on their own, greedy and with little expertise, they pose a risk to the civilian world and have to be stopped. The only place where murder and mayhem have to be set aside is in the continental hotels. Their house rule even applies to High Table members until they rule the hotel deconsecrated. The pseudo-legalization of crime and the High Table's control over it might not be the most ethical or moral system, but it is the system that has been in place for thousands of years. If the government wanted the High Table gone, they would deploy their military, arrest John Wick, all Continental members, and everyone associated with the High Table. None of them are anonymous or invincible. Their assets can be traced around the world, from locations and ownership of the Continental hotels to personal assets, bank accounts, and offshore firms. But the High Table provides value to society, and not only as entertainment for the civilian world.
I want to make it clear, I'm going to raise some taxes.
The global illegal drug market is estimated to be over $500 billion, or about 1% of global trade. If you add all the services the Continental Network provides, this is easily a $1 trillion market. If the High Table with its Continental Network would be listed on the New York Stock Exchange, it would be the fifth most valuable corporation. Its taxes make up for far more than the occasional cleanup after a car chase. But the Continental Network and its hitmen can provide something even more valuable: Black Ops. Any kind of military intervention in foreign countries is risky, politically, ethically, and economically. Sending ground troops requires lots of logistics and political approval within your own country. Not to mention how it affects diplomatic relationships with allied countries. The more soldiers, the bigger the effort, and the bigger the fallout if they end up coming back in body bags. Black Ops solves some of those issues, but the biggest risk is secrecy. If your friends find out that you've been kidnapping and killing people in their country, it is worse than doing it publicly. Here come the Continental and John Wick into play. John Wick is a mercenary for hire. In the eyes of the government and the High Table, he is a world-class assassin, but ultimately an asset. For the government, this is a very lucrative deal. They pay John a few $1 million to eliminate a dictator in the Middle East, instead of sending in their military, spending billions, losing soldiers in the process, and destroying the infrastructure of the country. Even in comparison to drone strikes that cause collateral damage and fierce political debate, John Wick's precision and efficiency is unmatched. Imagine John eliminating entire Middle Eastern terrorist organizations by himself. Or fascist dictators before they gain power and start a genocide. Paradoxically, for the average person, John Wick's world is way safer than ours. But if all governments had access to the Continental Hitman, it would be pure chaos too. We can assume that the High Table has an agreement with a coalition of nations, most likely with the NATO members, in addition to some OECD countries like Japan and South Korea. Giving the High Table a monopoly over organized crime, in return for taxes, black ops, and a way more satisfied and safe civilian life, sounds like a great deal. Even though the government has no direct influence over the High Table or how they operate, they keep a tight check on their activities. Meet Lawrence Fishburne, who officially is king of the baggers, managing an information network run by homeless people and pigeons, but unofficially is working with the NSA, tracing phone data and CCTV footage in real time for locations of assets, hitmen, and developments in the crime world. There is one simple rule in the world of organized crime. If you are in, you can't get out. You have sworn yourself to no longer abide the law of governments, but the law of the High Table. Once you enter the crime world, perks of civilian life do no longer apply to you. You lose your health insurance and any kind of civilian insurance. You do not qualify for loans or mortgages anymore, and the police won't help you if you're in trouble. Your access to all these services is now done through the crime world and its currency, continental gold coins. Worth around $2,000, the coin's primary value is access. Access to commerce under the high table and reaffirmation that you are bound to it. Civilians might get their hands on the coin, but the easiest thing for them is to sell it for its gold value. This puts a clear boundary between customer and supplier. No civilian junkie would pay with gold coins, and no crime cartel without them. Civilian customers only come in contact with small, replaceable suppliers, lowering the risk of escalation. This deliberate separation is also the reason why John never killed civilians. There is a clear line that he never crosses. Because if he would, not only the high table, but also the government military would be after him. The only thing that is more important than money in the world of the high table is loyalty and honor. If you don't serve and obey the high table and its rules, your life is forfeit. Each cartel family also has traditions and rights that are binding beyond life and death. John uses his family's ticket to escape New York while being excommunicado. Despite the clear violation against high table rules, his family honors his ticket. Such value can't be weighed in gold. But maybe they are just too scared of the consequences if they wouldn't. If John destroyed the high table, its authority that makes sure all cartels play fair with each other would vanish. Individual members and cartels would go rogue, claim territories and start wars. The carefully contained bubble of the crime world would burst and spread into civilian life. We are talking about Mexican-level cartel violence. The government would be forced to act like an authoritarian regime, with military patrolling the streets, mass arrests, curfews, and still, there would be thousands of civilians dying from gang violence every year. The bigger cartels would fight back with their own militia, leading to armed conflicts all over the world, governments run entirely by cartels, and completely destroyed economies. Winston knew this, but he also knew that while John is the most dangerous man on the planet, he is not the brightest. Convincing him to not destroy the world was rather easy.
Have you learned nothing? They will replace him before the body's cold. Hercules had his Hydra. You have the table, except you'll run out of bullets before they run out of heads.
The high table is not a Hydra that can infinitely replace its members. Only few, highly experienced family members can take seats at the high table. And if the most experienced are gone, the replacements will inevitably burn the place to the ground. John was brought back into the crime world against his will, only to be discarded and betrayed. It is no wonder why his anger is directed towards the system he once worked for. He knew he would never truly leave the crime world while he was alive, else he wouldn't have guns in his basement in the first place. John used his skills to shake up the rotting system of the high table from the inside, use their outdated rules against them, and force a change. All while at the same time becoming the most known, feared, and respected hitman in existence. But in the end, we don't know if he actually changed his world for the better, but at least he did not destroy it. If you made it this far, please subscribe.